Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the 2020 State of the Law School Address. I appreciate the live audience joining us, and also we know that we have an online audience and are also recording this for future viewing as well. I'm going to take our time today to tell you a little bit about some future plans for the law school and to update you on a lot of information about where we stand in terms of things like admissions and career services and other programs that we offer. 1920 has been a very momentous year for us. We had two very significant milestones for the law school. First, on August 3rd, the law school itself turned 120 years old. And then 2 weeks later, we became Chicago's public law school, having been acquired by the University of Illinois at Chicago. So those were amazing things that reflect both a robust past and a wonderful future that we have ahead of us. In terms of becoming Chicago's public law school, for those of you who might not have been following in detail like a lot of people in the building, the actual transfer occurred on August 16th of 2019. We spent most of the prior year going through various accreditation processes. All of that accreditation work has been completed very successfully, and we have one final follow-up visit coming in a couple of weeks on January 27th, when our regional accreditor will come back for a day and visit us about a few issues about how the change of control is going and how we're assessing student learning. So we are now the 16th college within the University of Illinois Chicago. We are now part of a Carnegie Research One University, which is highly prestigious. And we are also part of the University of Illinois system. So we're proud of all of these things and excited about what the future brings for us within this new system. So what are some of the things that are next? A lot of people, when they talk to me about the merger, they were like, oh, how did that go? And I have to say, well, it is an ongoing process. We knew this from the beginning. We knew that the integration was going to take at least 3, if not 4 years, and I've talked to some deans at schools who've gone through somewhat similar transitions, and they joke that even 6 and 7 years later, they're still having to do some work related to the transaction. The two biggest things that we have to look forward to, and we'll need your patience and understanding for, are the IT transition. One thing that we needed to take a lot more time on and explore and be incredibly careful with was merging all of the IT systems. We're still in the process of planning for this, and most of the cutovers will occur in the August timeframe in between the end of the summer term and the beginning of the fall term. And so stay tuned. There will be a lot of information about how your email changes and how access to things change. And we know that that is going to be a challenging process and one that, again, we wanted to think through and be able to focus on specifically. We also, probably the year after that, have to do a budget integration. We are still running on a different budgeting model. We have more of a standalone budget where we keep most of our resources here at the law school. And so that third year will be the year I anticipate that we will transition over and go to a little more of a shared services type of model and be budgeted just like the other schools, the professional schools within the system. And we know that that will take work and have some changes. But everyone has been committed all along to continue to offer on the law school campus the various student services that we have always offered. So again, we are trying to make sure that as much of that as we can keep here, that we can continue to keep here for the long term. The exciting thing that has started, and again will be a process, is we're starting to build the various dual degrees and interdisciplinary certificate programs with the other colleges. Every college within the university has come to ask us to work with them on a degree or a certificate, and actually even the University of Illinois Springfield has asked to work with us on some things. And it's an abundance of riches. The hardest thing is trying to figure out what to prioritize. Right now we are working with 3 different areas to try to get some dual degrees and certificates up. First, we are talking to the College of Public Health in terms of a JD MPH and maybe an MPH MJ. Second, we are working with CUPA, the College of Urban Planning and Public Administration, about various dual degree combinations between the law school and that college. So that could be a Master's of Public Policy, a Master's of Public Administration, a Master of Public Planning and Development, along with our JD, our LLM, and our MJ. And so we don't have the specific combinations that will be first in line, but we thought that was a college that a lot of our law students would have an interest in the work being done, would have a lot of overlap. And then one that is actually on my plate is I'm working with the College of Applied Health Sciences, specifically the Department of Disability and Human Development. And we're talking about 2 possible certificate programs, one in disability law and policy, and one in elder law and policy. Again, those are 2 areas of the law that grow, and we don't see any chance of it diminishing in the near future, and they already have highly recognized programs on the disability policy side. So we're excited about that possibility as well. We've been busy this year hiring some new faculty. We have 2 faculty who have been approved by the law school faculty, and we're in the process with the university. Because those haven't been publicly announced, I can't say the names. I can say the areas. One is a person that when we complete the process will come in and be our Associate Dean for Law and Health Sciences, and another one will be teaching in the lawyering skills area. We're also continuing to search for a director of our IP clinics, and we have some interviews going on in that area. So if all goes well, we'll have 3 new faculty who will be joining us next year. And then we've embarked on a strategic planning process. We have a committee that includes faculty, staff, an alum, a couple of students, and also a member of the Greater University Committee. And the first thing that we've been working on is a draft mission statement. We'll then start working on a set of core values, and then we'll be working on a strategic framework or strategic priorities going forward. We hope to complete this process by April, because we really do need to make that transition and think about where we're going in the context of a public Carnegie One institution. Before I show you a little bit on the strategic planning side, the 3 areas of emphasis that we identified during the negotiations and the transition that the law school would be focusing on going forward are law and health sciences. UIC has the largest medical school, not only in Illinois, but in the United States. They also have 7 colleges that focus on health sciences. We know that this is also a growing area within the law, and we felt that focusing on that combination would give students on both sides of this, the law and the health sciences, a lot of opportunities, not only for employment, to really have impact on society. Intellectual property, which has been a historical area of emphasis for John Marshall, and will continue going forward, and again with the Innovation Center at UIC and also the College of Engineering, there are a lot of interdisciplinary opportunities there as well. And then what we're calling public lawyering. And this really captures a lot of what John Marshall has stood for during its history. So think about the clinics. Think about training lawyers to go into public service and to provide the bridge for access to justice. So a lot of those things that have been part of the John Marshall imprimatur in the past will be encompassed in this area. And again, I think it's most highly identified with our clinics and our externships and our experiential education programs. So here is a draft of the mission statement. We shared this draft mission statement with the faculty a couple of weeks ago. We have plans to get input from staff and from students and from alums. But we're pretty excited about the direction it's taking. It's emphasizing our role as Chicago's public law school. It's reaffirming our commitment to things like diversity and innovation. It, I think, really ups the ante in terms of the scholarship that our faculty will be producing going forward. And it also emphasizes some new opportunities we have. One of those is interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary study. A lot of students, when I talk about this at small group dinners, they'll say, well, what the heck does that mean? And for me, if you look around the corner a little bit, I think it's not going to be long before the ethical rules that prohibit lawyers from sharing revenue with non-lawyers are going to go away. And that means the possibilities of who we collaborate with, who we become partners with, really opens up. So if you have a family law issue and you're going to pick an organization to go to, are you as the client going to be more apt to go to a place that has just lawyers, or a place that might have lawyers and financial planners and mental health professionals and social workers who can work holistically to help you address your issues? So this is what we really want to bring to our students, the ability to understand the other professions, how they might impact and intersect with the areas of law that you're interested in practicing, what are the ethical rules of that other profession, how do they relate to ours, and how can we all work together to really find the best solution to the issues that our clients are facing at the time. We also wanted to emphasize in this mission statement that you, the law students, are entering a rapidly changing world. So we need, as educators, not just to help you learn the law, but to learn processes to be highly adaptable, so that as the law changes, as the world changes, you're going to continue to be successful in the long run. So if anyone has ideas or suggestions on this mission statement, please send them along to me, and we'd be glad to take it back and discuss it. But again, we're excited about where we've gotten to this point and looking forward to refining this over the next weeks and months. Another exciting development at the law school is that in August we opened the Collaboration Commons. We took the 8th floor of the State Street building, which had been a library floor, and converted it to some really wonderful high-tech space that has a lot of study areas. It has collaboration areas. It has floor-to-ceiling whiteboards so the students can write on that. Virtually every space has a monitor so that the students can collaborate on a project, or for their colleagues who needed to leave the law school and go home for the evening and be with their family or take care of other business, they could Zoom or Skype them in for study groups and other collaboration. So this is an area that's been very popular with the students. It's almost always full, and we were really glad to bring it to our campus, because one thing that we are really focused on is making sure that all of our students are educated holistically. We're looking to make sure that we can help facilitate their development inside and outside of the classroom, and are looking for ways to make sure that we're helping to remove some obstacles. So one thing we did a couple of years ago was to open up a small food pantry, because if someone is hungry, you can't concentrate and you can't learn. A couple of new things that we've debuted this year are professional clothes closet. We have a lot of students who work full-time, every day of the week and need professional clothes for that. We have students who need professional clothes for clinics and interviews and externships. And because of the alums and our faculty and staff, we ended up with a wonderful start to this project and hope to continue it going forward. Another project that we started this year is called Seats for Students. We have reached out to law firms and legal organizations that buy tables at various events in the legal community or the greater Chicago community and need to fill those seats, and have said, hey, if you have empty seats for whatever reason, call us. We can provide students. And then we've implemented corresponding training programs on dining and event etiquette for the students so that they can show up and be comfortable in that environment. And that's really a win-win. And actually a win-win-win, because the table is full for the organizer of the charity, the law firm has a full table, and our students get to go into that environment and network and meet people from the legal community and the greater profession. And then the other thing we debuted this year is called the Bridge to Practice program. This is a program that is required for our 3L students in the semester that they are graduating. And what we do is take a full day and we bring in practicing lawyers in various areas from the Chicago area, so intellectual property and family law. And we give some overarching discussion and pointers on things that people really need to be thinking about as they cross that bridge, as they graduate from law school and becoming practicing attorneys. So what is business development and how might you go about that? What are the true economic issues that you need to be aware of when you accept a job in a law firm? And then we let the students break up into small groups and meet with several of the practicing attorneys to, again, give them that leg up as they move into the practice of law. In addition to the big news going on, the merger, the collaboration commons, we continue to have so many of our programs recognized nationally. We're very proud of this. As you can see, many of our programs have been recognized by different magazines and national surveys for 3 and more years. Practical training, intellectual property. We've been recognized by different organizations as being the most diverse law school in the Midwest, which we're very proud of. And we also have a lot of our alums who have been recognized by publications such as 40 Under 40 or notable Gen X leaders in the law. And in terms of U.S. News, which is the ranking that people tend to look at, we're proud to remain in the top 10 in legal writing. Our lawyering skills program is recognized as one of the best in the United States. And then we were also recognized as number 21 in trial advocacy this year as well. Turning now to some harder numbers. This semester, spring 2020, we have about 950 JD students in the student body. We are always a little bit smaller in the spring and in the fall by about 100 students because we have that December graduation. And I'm sorry, that's 951, that's all students, not just JD students. So the vast majority, a little over 900 are JDs, and then we have about 34 LLM or MJ students, not JD. Oh, I'm sorry, let me do this again. 951 are JD, I'll get this right the third time. 917 are in the JD program, another 34 are in dual degrees. They're both JD and LLM. We're about 57% female. We are 60% white, and then that you can get the corresponding rate on the students of color. It's around, I think, 34% of that group. We then have about 50 LLM students. The breakdown is somewhat similar in terms of gender, 53% female, and then the racial breakdown is pretty similar as well. You can see the degree areas. We have more students right now in intellectual property and estate planning going down the line, with our smallest program at this point being international business and trade. We have an MJ program that at this point has 7 different concentrations. We are about to get an 8th approved in law and policy. We're excited about that because we think that our UIC students in different programs will be most interested in matching that master's degree with another degree that they might be pursuing at the master's or PhD level. We have 13 students in the MJ program, about 70% female here, and this one has a little bit different racial breakdown. We have closer to 70% white students and in the 20% in terms of students of color. Intellectual property remains pretty firmly the top program in this area. I'm going to take a minute and show you some national admissions trends that you can then take and compare to the John Marshall data that we have for you. So this chart shows law school applicants, admissions decisions, and matriculants for a 13-year period. And you see a pretty dramatic downturn starting after fall of 2012. And you can see that from about 2015 through 2018, admissions were pretty flat. It went up a little bit in 2018. The new data, which hasn't been incorporated in anyone's printed charts yet, came out a few weeks ago. It was steady. So the fall 2019 JD matriculants was about 90 students fewer nationally than the year before. So pretty steady, but down, I think it was 0.25%. So we continue to look at, how is that going to go in the future? What it looks like is that law schools are becoming more selective in who they're admitting, that a smaller number of the pool are actually getting in and then matriculating. In terms of gender, you can see from this that female students do now outnumber male as of 2018, and I believe that held up nationally in 2019 as well. In terms of minority JD enrollment, the data shows that there's a higher percentage of students of color in part-time programs than full-time programs. You can see the orange is the full-time program, and that's held relatively steady, right around 30% since 2012, but the part-time numbers have been climbing a little bit since 2011, up from about 31% to 38%. And the degrees awarded to students of color have been increasing. If you look back to 1987, it's almost 30 years, more than 30 years, to now it went from 10% to about 30%. So turning to our admissions data. In terms of fall admissions trends, you can see, again, if you remember that downturn nationally, you can see that we had some of that same experience here in John Marshall, but it happened a little bit later for us. We had the dramatic downturn 2012 to 2013, but then we had another pretty dramatic dip as late as 2016. Since then, it's come back up. The last 2 years, we've admitted the same number of students, and that's intentional because right now, we really can only have 3 full-time day sections. To have another day section, we would really have to increase admissions by about another 50 to 60, and we don't feel like we've had the pool to do that. Next year, we're shooting to hold steady at just this same level. In terms of the applications this year, we did get more applications, but we admitted fewer students. That is along with the national trend there. And you can see the breakdown. Most of our students are in the full-time program, but we do have both part-time day and part-time evening. In terms of the statistics, our median LSAT for the 2019, and this is fall 2019 entering cohort, was 150 with an average or median GPA of 3.23. This is the 3rd year in a row that we saw a 1-point increase in our LSAT. The goal for next year is to try to hold at a 150. Given the analysis we've done and the new situation we're in as a state institution not having as much scholarship money to award, our goal is to try to, again, hold steady on the number of students, right around that 300 mark, hold steady on the LSAT, knowing that we will have to reduce what's called our discount rate, the amount of scholarship that we waive, amount of scholarships that we give out and the amount of tuition that we waive for people. But you can see our 75th percentile LSAT also went up a point, as did the 25th percentile. One thing we are shooting for this year is to increase the 25th percentile LSAT from a 147 to a 148. So we're hoping to achieve that. Some other information about the 1L1, the fall 2019 entrance. 78% from Illinois, 60% female, which is pretty close to what the overall student body is. 31% students of color, 140 undergraduate institutions represented from 25 states, 8 foreign countries, and 29 held other advanced degrees before entering law school. In terms of spring, the students who just joined us earlier this month, you can see that our applications were almost identical to last year. We made fewer offers and we registered fewer students. We did that in order to preserve the credentials. The spring 2020 class will be combined with the credentials of the fall 2020 class for our U.S. News entering cohort statistics. And we really want to hang on to that 150, so we had to be careful about the level of admissions in this area. You can see from this chart that the part-time program in spring has decreased, and the spring overall admissions have also decreased. You can see here we only had 10 part-time students both this year and last year. And that was down from back in the day when we would have 40 and 50 in that evening program and more than 100 overall. This is something that we are looking at very carefully because the spring entering class, especially the part-time entering class, has become economically unviable. So we are thinking about how do we continue to provide access and opportunity and flexibility to students, yet do it in a way that's sustainable and doesn't detract from other parts of our program. So stay tuned for that. We are working on some ideas that we will be rolling out for discussion later in the spring. In terms of this group, the median LSAT was a 149. We were able to raise that a point. We did that by reducing the class size. We were also able to increase the median GPA for this group a little bit as well. Once again, you can see that the 75th percentile increased, and then the 25th percentile held steady on this. So overall, an increase in credentials for the spring entering class as well. In terms of their other data, very close, 77% from Illinois, a little more female than male in terms of the fall class, 34% students of color. That ties back to the trend you saw, that there tend to be more students of color by percentage in part-time programs. So with that, we're near the national average, but we're actually below it. So that surprised me for a school that is the most diverse in the Midwest to actually be below the national average of students of color in the part-time class, and something that we need to be thinking about. And then we had fewer undergraduate institutions represented, 25, but 6 states and 6 advanced degrees here. In addition to these students, we had a variety of other students join us during the year. We have new MJ students, new LLM students, some transfer students, a lot of visiting students from other institutions who are here for a semester or a year for various personal reasons. And then in the fall, we had some exchange students from the Czech Republic who we were glad were able to join us. Student debt is a tricky, important issue, and this is one of the benefits that the merger with UIC is going to bring over the long term, because for in-state students, we were able to reduce the tuition from about $37,000 down to from $47,000 down to $37,000. But you can see from this chart that even though from 2018 to 2019, the average debt per graduate reduced, it's still close to $160,000, which in terms of the national average tends to put us in the top 15 to 20 schools with the most debt per students nationally. And that's something that we're working hard to change. But in terms of what we can do, what you can do, we need to work together in this. And one thing I always look at when I get this chart is that number on the bottom. This is the percentage of students who took more loans than the calculated maximum. So more than the total of tuition plus fees plus living expenses as we calculate on a template measure. So 34% took more than that. And that's something that we all need to work together to discuss, because obviously the more debt a student has, the fewer opportunities they have to take a job they might really want to at the end. The job is really going to be driven by how much income they can make. So this is something that we continue to drill down in. We continue to look at factors. We continue to work with financial aid. We now have university financial aid partners who help us take a look at this. But know that we're serious about this, and for students who have questions about financial aid, we encourage you to come forward and talk to any of the deans and financial aid or student life, because we want to make sure that you're getting value for the degree and that you're able to graduate and take the job that's really going to make you happy because you're passionate about it, not because it had simply the right price tag on it. In terms of the Student Life and Student Organization Office, one of my pictures isn't showing up on the screen, so I apologize for that. I worked on my computer. You saw on the holistic education slide a lot of the programs that are going on that are actually run out of this office. This is the office that also coordinates with a lot of the student organizations. We have about 40 student organizations. They're very robust. There are 4 or 5 that actually started just this semester, including one for first-generation students, which is very exciting given the diversity of our student body. But we just wanted to show this, to just show how dynamic these student groups are and to acknowledge how important they are for the professional development of our students and for service. A lot of these groups go out and serve those in other areas of the community. One wonderful thing that our Student Life office started was an affirmation wall where students can write nice things and post them, and if they need a little encouragement, they can actually come take something off the wall to carry with them and give them good thoughts for the day. And I thought that was wonderful and wanted to share it with a greater audience. We're also proud that our students are recognized by other organizations for scholarships. They're appointed to boards for service. The students listed up here tonight are just some of those who have been recognized very recently for outstanding work or performance in certain areas. We want to encourage all students that if they've received an outside award or scholarship or appointment, to let us know through Student Life, because on April 7th we'll be having our annual Honors and Awards ceremony, and we want to be able to include that information in our program and recognize you as well. We have this year a new leader of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Office. That is Tanya Luma, who is a John Marshall alum. She started over the summer in this role. She was with us a year before in our Academic Achievement Department, but she's really been dynamic and started a lot of new programs, and she's out there working with students. Some of the things that we're emphasizing through this department are also being emphasized through our academic programs, particularly our academic support program. We want to make sure that students really have a sense of belonging here, and there are ways to work on that through programming and education, and we're emphasizing that. We are also a culture that emphasizes respectful dialogue. I know that some things happened here last week in some classes. I want the students who were impacted by that to know that we are taking that very seriously. They are being investigated, and we're taking steps to address that conduct. And I hope that many of you got to read the message that I sent out on MLK Day. It is important that we realize that we must communicate with, interact with, and respect people who are different than we are. That's what this world is about. It's what being a lawyer is about. And I just wanted to reiterate that respect is one of the hallmarks of being here at UIC John Marshall. Dean Lynn in her office also tried to get everyone to think about how they're communicating more generally. Are they doing it effectively? Are they doing it in a way that cuts across all of the different lines that make us a whole? And we do a lot of different programming for faculty and students. There were some wonderful programs in the fall having to do with when slavery came to the United States, celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day. And the next big series of events coming up will be the week of March 9th, when we will have Diversity Week, which we have branded Live Law in Color. And the theme of this year's Live Law in Color is structural inequities in the law. And the different student organizations here will be taking ownership of different programs and having dialogues on a variety of topics underneath that theme. Our advocacy programs continue to be very strong here. Our moot court board had a variety of successes this past year. You can see, the semifinal finishes and the quarterfinal finishes, and you see all the students holding their various awards. And our trial teams and ADR teams also had a great year. In the fall, we were invited to a very elite competition called the Summit Cup, and we came in third place and had the runner-up best oralist in that, among other awards that you see listed on this slide. An exciting new development this year is that we have hired a professor named Shakira Pleasant. She teaches in lawyering skills, but she is also the director of our Legal Writing Resource Center, which we have moved from the 6th floor up to the 11th floor. She has really invigorated this area, and she has hired a new staff who you see up here, and they're really innovating this area. You can now get online appointments. They have evening appointments. They're doing a variety of other types of programs to help students with their writing. We as John Marshall, UIC John Marshall, pride ourselves on teaching students how to write well. Our Lawyering Skills formal program provides the foundation for this, but we are one of the very few institutions in the United States who have a full-time legal writing center staffed by people who hold JD degrees. A lot of other law schools that have writing centers use second and third year law students to do most of the mentoring. So this is something I hope of all of our students take advantage of, whether it's in the lawyering skills context or if you need someone to look over a writing sample or resume, they are here to help you in that regard. Yet another exciting development is we were able to recruit Alicia Alvarez from the University of Michigan to be our Associate Dean for Experiential Education. She comes to us with amazing experience in the clinical area, and we have been working on a variety of ways to improve the clinical experience for our own students in terms of being able to get the foundation of client skills that you need to represent clients, and also to have the field experience where you can be that that lawyer representing clients, to actually get that hands-on experience. So we're excited about that. We're looking at different areas in the future we might expand into, and we continue also to look for ways to serve our clients. And one of these is that multidisciplinary approach. So for example, one of our clinics is already working with faculty and students in the School of Social Work to help the clients in a different way. We're also talking to some of the health sciences centers about how doctors and nurses and medical students and nursing students can come and work with our clients in our clinics to give them a higher and broader level of service. Bar passage is an area of concern. We held a bar pass town hall last night. We held a similar one in November. If you didn't get to participate in that, we have recorded them both, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this tonight because we spent an hour on it last night, but I encourage you to listen to one of the town hall recordings. Illinois is now offering the uniform bar exam as of July. The first administration of that is shown here into 2019, and the John Marshall graduates passed at 58% versus 80% for the state of Illinois. We saw something similar last February. 67% was the overall pass rate, 57%. We have been digging into these numbers, looking at what's going on, trying to improve our academic advising and our academic support, trying to give students really good advice on how to proceed academically, choices they can make, and also how to plan for life. Life happens, and we know that happened to some people this administration, and it happens every bar exam. Something happens to throw you off course. So again, please take advantage of our resources, knowing that we're looking into this and want to work with you hand in hand on it. I heard rumors in the student body that people thought that we might be in danger of losing our ABA accreditation because of the bar passage. That's actually not true. The ABA standard, which changed recently, looks at what's called an ultimate bar passage rate. What is ultimate bar passage? It's defined as 2 years after you graduate from law school. So essentially, if you took the bar every time that was available, most people will have 4 chances to sit for the bar. And then it's obviously lagging, because once you graduate, it's about 2.5 years out by the time the results trickle in. So what is the rate that we have to meet? 75%. 75% ultimate bar passage rate. So for the 2 classes that have recently closed, you can see we were close to 90 for the class of 2016, right above 86% for the class of 2017. Those weren't changed, so even if someone else takes the bar from one of those classes, the ABA doesn't adjust it. For the class of 2018, we're still collecting those results. So you can see we're about at 77%. So unless a whole lot of people who have never sat for a bar before all of a sudden sit and fail, we feel pretty good that we're in compliance. Now that's a much closer call than those 2 prior years, but it keeps us in good standing. And then for the class of 2019, we're awaiting all of those results. They won't really be ready for another 2.5 years, but we track it on a 6-month basis to see how we're doing, to see who's sitting for the bar and who's persisting. Because of this, one thing that we have recently ramped up is our assistance to alums. Not that we would not help alums who needed assistance on bar passage going before this, but it's a renewed effort, because once you take the bar, you're part of the denominator, and we need to talk to you about your persistence in continuing to try to sit for the bar and to provide you support for that. Our Career Services Office continues to provide a lot of service to our school. You can see that they posted more than 2,200 jobs, that they put on more than 40 career-oriented programs, and they also run our mentor programming. The most current employment data that we have is for the class of 2018, because we collect this data 10 months after graduation. So for this class, which had 274 students, At that 10-month point, so this is a snapshot in time, 86.5% were employed. And then you can see the other categories. A little over 8% were still seeking employment. We didn't know about 1%, which is really good. Our officers work hard to find everyone. A couple of people had a job, but the start date fell on the other side of that 10-month cutoff date. A few were in full-time degree programs, and a couple, just 1%, were not seeking, they were not employed, but they were also not seeking employment at that time. Of those who were employed, the vast majority, 93.25%, were in full-time positions, and about 90% were in long-term positions. Long-term is defined anything beyond a year. So once it passes the year mark, you get into the long-term categories. And those are both the categories you want to see people in. In terms of the types of positions, 67.5 were in positions where bar passage was required. 22% were in JD Advantage positions. This means you don't have to have a law degree, but it would give you a leg up on the position. You would have a benefit if you applied. So that might be an HR director position. So you don't have to have JD to do it, but it could certainly benefit and give you a leg up in that. Just under 7% were in other professional positions, and then about 3% were in non-professional positions. A good number of our students here are our police officers who come back, get their law degree, and aren't yet going to go practice law until maybe they retire. And depending on the type of position they hold within the police department, it depends on whether they get put in another professional or in a non-professional position. That's not 100% of them, but that does explain some of the people in those categories. This is another national chart published by Access Lex, a well-regarded legal education organization. And for the class of 2018, this shows that 73% of that cohort went into jobs with bar pass required. That's slightly higher than the numbers from John Marshall. That 12% went into JD Advantage jobs. We were double that number, so that accounts for that difference. And so I thought that was interesting. One thing, some people think that the JD Advantage category isn't as good, but it really depends. Some of those jobs pay extraordinarily well and provide great career opportunities. So to me, the bar pass required and the JD Advantage are both excellent categories and ones that we pursue and can recommend for students depending on their interests. Going back to John Marshall data, in terms of practice settings, this is a trend that has been pretty steady over time. Just over half, close to 53% of our students went to a law firm to practice. Again, year in, year out, that's a pretty steady number. 28% went into business or industry, 11% government, 3% judicial clerkships, 2.5% public interest, and then a few went into education. This next number also tends to be pretty steady over time when you look at the size of law firms where our students go. We put them in all categories, but the vast majority end up in the smaller firms, from 2 to 10 and 11 to 25. And then looking at those who went into business jobs, you've got things all over the place. First, a full half of our students fit into the other category, something that wasn't a category that the National Association of Law Placement gives you to choose from. You can see 15% of our recent graduates went into in-house counsel positions. And then 9% went into compliance. So those are really great categories for our student. On the other hand, we have some that went into temporary work and are self-employed, consulting. Sometimes those are transition positions until they get bar passage and find the job that they're seeking for that first longer-term position. I'm very happy that we had 8 people go into judicial clerkships, including one on the 7th Circuit. And so that was very exciting. This number was double what it was last year. This is something we're just really trying to get our students to pay attention to and to understand the value of doing judicial clerkships and the fact that it's going up, even though that's a small number, I'm very excited about. And then some comparison data with our Chicago peers in terms of law schools. You can see the list here. You can see that our total employment was 86.5. That was very close to the national average. The thing that always strikes me about this chart is that year in, year out, we place more people in jobs than any other law school, actually in the state of Illinois, not just in Chicago. So that's pretty impressive to me. There's always work to be done, but our career services staff is also always looking at ways to help our students become more marketable and to find those positions that will be good matches. And then in terms of median salaries of all those employed, and this number you have to take a little bit with a grain of salt because people have to self-report. Some people don't want to self-report, regardless of whether their salary is high, low, or in the middle. When people do report, it does tend to be people on the higher side, though. But it tends to be a very small percentage of the overall graduate. So our overall employed is $64,400. The national numbers for this class were $70,000. So we're a little bit behind the median, but again, how many of our people reported versus the national average, it's not a statistic I get too worked up about because the data is not as good as the other employment data where we get almost 100% of our people reporting. And here's a little bit of good news. Again, I always take this with a grain of salt as well. This is based on some Bureau of Labor Statistics forecasting, which basically shows that the legal sector is going to be growing in the next few years. That was anticipated because law schools have shrunk and the number of graduates going into the market has been smaller, so there is demand there. But I hope that this is good news for the students currently in the building. A few things about our faculty. We have amazing faculty doing amazing things. Sam Jones has just been appointed to some fantastic local commissions having to do with the judiciary and was named one of the top 100 lawyers in the country. Michael Sang, who has been here more than 30 years, obtained a HUD grant for us to be the National Training Center for Housing Law in the United States, which is simply incredible. Steve Schwen has been all over the airwaves and newspapers and op-ed pages. He was in the LA Times earlier this year. I saw him quoted again. I think he was picked up in the Washington Post recently on a lot of the political issues going on. Sheila Murphy, who is part of our part-time faculty and works with Michael Singh in the Restorative Justice Program, received one of the John Paul Stevens Awards from the Chicago Bar Foundation. This is one of the most prestigious awards that a Chicago attorney can receive. Sonia Green, I know a lot of you know her from LS and Civil Procedure, has been named the director of our new pre-law program. So we are debuting a set of courses this summer at UIC in the undergraduate program as a way to attract students who are interested in law school. So they can take a couple of classes that we've designed specifically for them, both to test out whether law school is going to be for them, or to find out, if they're committed to this, to find out tips of how to apply to law school, how to find the best fit in a law school, and how to start thinking about a longer-term career as a lawyer. And then finally, Darryl Lim, this was a picture of him from a couple of days ago. He was speaking abroad in China at a very prestigious conference. He tends to pop up all around the world talking about IP issues, which keeps us as one of the top-ranked schools in that area. And then finally, in terms of alums, we have more than 19,000 living John Marshall and now UIC John Marshall alums worldwide. Although most live in the Chicagoland area, they really are around the globe. And we continue to have more graduates sitting on the bench in the state of Illinois than any other law school. We're very proud of that. We also have 10 alums who are serving either in the Illinois legislature or the U.S. Congress. For many years, John Marshall, when it was an independent private law school, had an alumni association that was actually separately incorporated, the John Marshall Law School Alumni Association. Because of our switch to a public law school, over the summer, that organization dissolved. But we are in the process of creating a new alumni council for the law school, Howard Aiken, who was the last president of the John Marshall Law School Alumni Association, is president of the Alumni Council. Chris Calley and Natasha Kohler, past presidents of the John Marshall Law School Alumni Association, are the vice presidents of this council. And we're in the process of developing a structure to continue our outreach and engagement with our alums. One thing that we're about to do is debut a Dean's Advisory Council, where we will invite 100 people to serve staggered 2-year terms, to come back to the law school 2 times a year to interact with students and faculty and learn what's going on and hopefully be our ambassadors, not just to the rest of the alumni base, but to the community. We also committed to the Alumni Association that we would continue the 2 most significant events that organization had put on year in and year out. And one was the judicial reception. We had that in the fall, and our alum, Justice Joy Cunningham, received the Howard Markey Award. The other one is our Freedom Award presentations, which we will have this year again on April 23rd. But we have now created some new categories of awards for our alums. So not only will we have the Freedom Award and the Distinguished Service Award, but we will also be giving awards in the categories of public service. We'll give an ambassador awards, people who go out and spread goodwill on behalf of the law school. A Rising Star Award for those who were 20 or less years out of law school. And a Gold Award, or Graduate of the Last Decade Award, for those who graduated in the last 10 years. So I hope all the alums out there, as well as other members of the community, will make a note to come join us at the Freedom Awards this year on April 23rd to see not only that award given, but a whole lot of new awards given to our very deserving alums. So to wrap this up, I wanted to give you a peek at some other things that are coming up. First, as I said earlier in the presentation, we're going to continue the transition. There's a lot to do. Those technical IT transfers, but also building the various degrees and certificates and figuring out which courses can be cross-listed between the law school and other schools. We're going to continue to focus on academic excellence. How can we prepare our graduates to go out there and be the best, and to have that ability to adjust and adapt over the course of their entire career, and to do it in a holistic way. We want you not only to be good lawyers, but we want you to be well-rounded professionals and know how to interact with people in business and professional settings. And then we're starting to talk about what is the future of law and law school. I've already talked about the multidisciplinary aspect of this. The other thing we've got to think about is increased competition. When you look at the biggest law firms in the world, what are they? They're the accounting firms. They're also foreign lawyers who can do the work that used to be limited to U.S. lawyers. We have artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence probably does 50% of the job that I did as a beginning associate. So we've got to think about what lawyers are going to be doing not only in the next 5 or 10 years, but 20 years out, and make sure you have the skills to do that. And another really important question is, what does access mean for our students? You saw those numbers for the spring entering class. We know nationally that evening attendance is declining. So what is the new version of the old bricks and mortar evening program? I think something's popping into most of your heads, and yes, we are starting to think about that and determine whether that's the right path for UIC John Marshall and our students, because again, we have always been that place where people could come if they needed to work or had other obligations. But what does that look like today? It's probably not coming to downtown Chicago in a building 3 to 4 nights a week. So we're going to have some interesting conversations about that. And finally, some of you know that I recently started my term as president of the Association of American Law Schools. And so in that role, I get to think a lot about national legal education nationally. And I think everyone, or most of us, are focused on what's going on in the world today. And one thing I want to make sure that we do here at John Marshall is train you not just to be good technical lawyers, but to really be the leaders who can protect the pillars of democracy, our branches of government, the profession of journalism. If not you, who? Right? You have to be able to tackle those problems, and we want to help you. You have to understand the importance of the rule of law and the importance of an independent judiciary and be part of that dialogue. And you have to understand our profession's duty to ensure that everyone who needs access to a lawyer should be able to get that. We don't have that now. We don't do a good job of it. So how can we as an institution have those as values and help you prepare to meet those challenges? So that's a little bit about what's going on. I thank you for joining us this evening. For the live audience, I will turn off the recording, and if people have questions, we can talk about that offline. Have a wonderful evening.